Okay, if you've been watching any of these videos, you will know that the last video I uploaded was comparing the duration maps of the PD130 Passat with the PD150 Seat Leon, and discovering that in effect you couldn't compare them because it certainly looks like the injectors are different. So it looks like the injectors are slightly different, despite the fact many people say they are more or less the same. What I'm going to do next is look at start of injection. And now if we look at start of injection, we've got 10 maps to go through. But anyone who's been with me on this journey through looking at maps in Windows will know that start of injection map 9 for this file is the main function map once the engine is warm. So I'm going to jump straight to that one. And it's the same for the PD150. So I'm going to jump straight to that one. So they're the two maps that I'm going to look at. Now, I can see at first glance some differences. I can't see if there are any differences in the axes because the axis data for these two files or these two maps is nowhere near where the maps are. And if you were with me when I went through some of this on the earlier videos, you'll know that for yourself now. So the first thing I need to do is look at the axis data. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to just click here and have a quick wander up. Oh, there it goes. I'll use the scroll wheel to bring it back. There's the axis data. I'll do the same on this one. I'll try and do it in little jumps this time. There it goes. So there's the axis data. So what we want to know is it the same or isn't it the same? And again, as I said before, the easiest way to find out is to copy it. So I'm going to copy that and then I'm going to paste it there. I'll delete that. I'll delete that. And nothing's changed, so obviously that's the same. And then I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste that there. Just delete those. And we've got differences. Now, I'm not surprised that we've got differences because remember this is all about fueling and we know the two files have got different fueling. So we expected duration differences. We didn't quite get the expected duration differences we were expecting to see, i.e. I thought that the duration might be a little bit longer. We've got differences here though. Right, so I'm going to leave that there for now and let's go and have a look. That should be 9 with a little bit of luck. And then I'll click down a few times on this one. With a little bit of luck, that one is 9 there as well. Right, so there's 9 and 9. Now we've had a look and seen that the axes are different. So they are. Now what would happen if we were to take that data for start of injection and put it into our 130? That's quite different. Now the thing is, how meaningful is all of this? Because we've got two things going on with start of injection. If we change duration, start of injection will need to change to match duration, in the sense that if duration is made longer, start of injection will need to become earlier if possible. You can't just keep making things earlier or later just to suit yourself, as I've explained in previous videos, but if possible, by making duration longer, you would want to make start of injection start earlier. There is another thing that occurs with start of injection, and that is just making it slightly earlier because you are in effect advancing the timing as the revs rise. Now we've got a real problem here because we don't really know what's going on here. We don't know why this file and this file are different, because we know the injectors seem to be slightly different. So we know that the duration is slightly different, and we know that if the duration is slightly different, that will have a knock-on effect on the start of injection. So we're stuck with a problem now, because should we consider changing start of injection if we want to increase the performance of a 130 bhp to match a 150 bhp? I suggest that the answer is simply no, because we don't know for sure that it would be okay to make those changes, because we've got these which are reductions and we've got these which are increases, and that's where the problem comes in. If we were going to make changes to start of injection, we would need to consider which of these values that are different are important. In other words, which ones seem to be making a difference, and a difference that's not just due to a change in duration. Now, we saw that duration values appeared to go down, not up. So these start of injection values that appear to have gone up may be relevant. It's maybe that those values here in red, and maybe even a few here, would make a difference to the performance of our 130. But what I'm not going to suggest anyone even considers is just taking this information, copying it across like we've done there, and saying that's okay, we're good to go, because I don't think we are. So if anybody considers remapping a 130 to make it more like a 150, they might want to consider making some changes, but they might only want to consider making some changes somewhere around this region, not the whole map. Now, at some point later I may well go into this in greater detail, but at the moment I'm just doing a comparison of two different files, and my conclusion in that comparison is that it's probably not wise to consider taking a big chunk of this map and sticking it in that file or that map and seeing what it's like in a car. So, having made that comparison, I suspect that start of injection is best left alone, just like duration is best left alone. So I'm going to go back to there, and I'm going to go back to edit, and I'm going to say give me my original values, and I'm going to clear that, and then I'm going to go back up here, and because these have changed as well, I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to say go back to my original values. Right, now having said all of that about how I'm not going to make changes, I'm now going to argue against myself to a certain extent, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this as a map, and I'm going to open this one as a map. Now this one hasn't been fully processed by the looks of things, so I'm going to go in there and give myself a couple more points after the decimal point, and then this one looks like it's got the factor in there. That's okay. I want probably a couple of points after the decimal point, and it looks like I want minus 78 in there as well, so that it matches the one above. Right, now here is a point where it's possible, and I stress possible, that if I wanted to make a change to my 130 maps, I might not want to change this data, but what I might want to consider doing is changing this data, the axis. Because if you look at the axes, let's look at what we've got. Look, we've got 0, 5, 7.5, 10, 15. 0, 5, 10, 15. The 7.5 is missing. Now the figures from this map to that map are not hugely different now that I'm looking at the two maps like this, and this is an example of how looking at the map rather than looking at the file is actually an advantage. The figures that we're looking at are not that different. So maybe part of the thing to consider is let's move the figures rather than anything else. So maybe it would be an idea to just have this information up here for the axis. And the reason I'm suggesting that is that if you were making changes, we know we would like a little bit more fuel. Now that one runs to 60 milligrams and this one peters out at 55. So maybe it would be worth considering allowing these two to match. Now in the duration they don't, because we stopped at 55 anyway and we left it alone. Maybe there is a slight difference here. So what I'm suggesting is that should you consider remapping your 130 to higher values, and should you consider using 150 values as a guide, then maybe at this point it might be worth considering saying to yourself, well, if I was to take that value and 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 so on, and just those, would that make a difference? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back out of there and I'm going to go back to the axes. Having changed the axis and then unchanged it, I'm going to go back to the axes and I'm going to have a look and see what we've got on this axis data, because this one runs, there we are, 60. At the moment it looks like 6,000. So I'm going to copy that one. Let's delete to get rid of the highlight, and then I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to click paste and get rid of the highlight. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go back. I don't need to go back to this one, but I'm going to anyway, because I want to see it like that. So I'm going to go back to that one, and then up here I'm just going to go to, there we are, 9 as that one, and of course now it's got a new axis on it, not going up to 60 like that one did. And I'm going to look at the values that I've got now. Now I'm not suggesting that this is exactly something that you should do, but what I'm certainly suggesting is it's something to consider as a way of remapping, isn't it? Because what I've done is I've taken out what was in here or in there. I've taken out the 7.5. So now the ECU is going to have to extrapolate between 5 and 10. So before it was going 5 and then it had a 7.5, then a 10. Now it's going to have to go 5, 10, 15 and not have that extra point, which I doubt makes any difference at all to the way the ECU functions. But what I have done is I've allowed for a 60 at the end. Now given that that figure column there was for 55, by leaving those figures alone, it's possible that I won't get very much difference in fueling. But equally it's possible that I will, because these figures were not for 55 and now they are. So it's possible that I might get a slight difference in fueling as a result of this. I might notice a slight difference. So if I were thinking of changing my 130 and trying to get a little bit more power out of it, I might consider using this map 9, but only in the sense of modifying it to have a changed axis and then leaving the data alone for now, because we don't know how the injectors compare exactly, and then seeing how it goes. That is unlikely to do any harm, so I would feel comfortable making those changes and testing them out. Now, there is a lot more to this, obviously, and there are a lot of calculations that can be made to make a difference to what's going on at this point, but we are not remapping anything at the moment. We are just looking at differences. If I get as far as showing you how to do calculations and the like at a later date, then you'll see just how more complicated the whole thing tends to become. But for the moment, I'm just going to click that click that one off, and again I'm going to save it, so I'll save that change, but no, I don't want a new version. So I'm going to save that change, and then I'm going to stop there.